Hello one and all, it is I, the J-Shot, welcoming you back to A History of Caged Violence. Now, ever since I started this channel, I've gotten questions about which MMA events I'm going to cover. Because, of course, at some point in the sport's history, things got a whole lot less ridiculous. But I'm here to tell you that UFC 11 is certainly not that point. Even though it may look like it, this isn't Star Trek, and we aren't boldly going anywhere. We're simply going to sit back and enjoy another UFC tournament that's bound to go off without a hitch. Tank Abbott was quite literally the poster boy for this event, so one might expect his face to be the first one we see on the broadcast. But not like this. Never like this. Bruce Beck announces that 8 men are about to unleash their bare-knuckle fury, just as several fighters are shown wearing gloves. Don't worry, by the end of this train wreck, that won't even be a blip on the radar.
David Tank Abbott is back from suspension.
Yep, old Tank got his wrist slapped a few months back. Remember the brawl in Bayamon? Neither do I. But I do remember at UFC 8 where they nearly showed a fight breaking out in the crowd. A fight started by Mr. Class Act himself. 8 fighters will do battle, but judging by the opening package, the only other man in the tournament is Mark Coleman. Clearly, they were banking on a Tank Hammer final. Will they get their wish?
Let's open up the gates.
We're in Augusta, Georgia, a town that for some reason, 1 month after Atlanta hosted the actual Olympics, wanted some good publicity and knew exactly how to get it. Shown are their historic homes and buildings, the sign outside the Augusta Golf Club, a medical center, and James Brown. But the Godfather of Soul isn't in the building.
No, I'm not.
And neither is the other James Brown, better known as Jim. Please come back, JB. I'll be good. I'll eat all my vegetables. I'll do my homework. You said you were just going for cigarettes. I won't be mad. Just please come home. Mom cries a lot. Bruce Beck starts in with the formal introduction and doesn't break stride when Big John McCarthy photobombs the hell out of the intro. We learn about the laws of the octagon from this janky-ass graphic that omits many of the actual rules so they can continue to claim there are none. Why overtimes were ever a thing is beyond me. What's also beyond me is what the Ultimate Fighting Alliance is, but either way, Art Davie is the commissioner of it. Okay. Before any punches are thrown, we get backstage interviews with the champ and one of the 7 challengers. Tank is now a walking billboard for a computer company that has its own website and everything. But what hasn't changed is his razor-sharp listening and speaking skills.
Are you prepared to go toe-to-toe with them as far as the hands go?
I don't think so.
Should be a great fight then. Speaking of letting the hands fly, CompuServe is back, and the question posed to UFC keyboard warriors is, could Mike Tyson win? 76% of respondents indicated that no way, no how could Iron Mike be successful in the octagon. And when you see fighters like Julian Sanchez, the sacrificial lamb being fed to reigning champ Mark Coleman, you know the voters nailed it on the head. So it's time for the first fight. Coleman's neck is so big no shirt could possibly contain it, while his opponent does not have that problem. Sanchez's discipline is ASICS. Whatever that is. All we know is it favors power over techniques, but don't worry about that because he has limited foreman training in it. He runs to the ring wearing what you wore to paint your house. Let's hear directly from the man himself, perhaps on his strategy or something about his skills. Maybe he just wants to say hello to family and friends.
Mark Coleman es un peleador bien fuerte, bien rápido.
You know I don't speak Spanish. In English, please.
Just imagine being the ASICS practitioner waiting in the octagon when this man makes the walk. Good grief. Flanking him is another future champ and Hall of Famer, Kevin Randleman. The Hammer has the late legend by his side for one reason, and that's because he's friends with the monster. A big welcome back to the G-Man Rich Goins. Both Buffer boys are out, and the on-again, off-again voice of the octagon is back. Although apparently he's changed his name to Rick.
This one looks like a mismatch on paper.
Will a lamb finally best a lion? Let's find out. Coleman takes him down right away and goes for the old pull your opponent's head off move, which works like a charm. All things considered, 45 seconds is a respectable showing for Senor Sanchez. More respectable than the UFC blatantly giving their champ a cakewalk to the semis anyway. Next up, it's the return of the American kickboxer Brian Johnston taking on Iranian Greco-Roman wrestler Reza Nasri. He's listed as knowing a variety of techniques. Tell us more, Rez.
Goes everything with me. Wrestling, everything. Punch, elbows, knees.
Message received. A diverse skill set will be helpful against BJ. Like Steve Jenham before him, he's a bit of a precursor to the modern-day MMA fighter, capable of throwing hands and feet while standing and aware of how to get and avoid submissions on the ground. Beck talks about his confidence and focus while the cameraman struggles to accomplish the latter. Ken Shamrock has a front row seat for the fight as he scouts the competition ahead of his return, though that wouldn't come on this night. Now, although Nasri takes the center of the octagon, it's mere seconds before Johnston tosses him on his back and moves to mount like he's done it 1,000 times. Big John knows how important it is not to let too many shots get through, because then Nasri could get a broken nose or something. So he tackles Johnston hard, breaking his nose, which understandably doesn't sit well with the winner, who took 0 damage during the fight but is now gushing blood.
Big John McCarthy apologized to Nasri.
The apology is more likely aimed at Johnston for inadvertently rearranging the bones in his face, but whatever. Sam the Experienced Adkins is back for another kick at the can. He's paired up with Tank Abbott, two guys with a lot of similarities.
Both of their last names begin with A.
They're boxers with experience in wrestling who want to keep the fight standing, as both are vulnerable on their backs.
D.L. Abbott, L for Lawless.
Big cheers for Tank, who's a fan favorite for his hard-nosed style, no-nonsense approach, and solid promo cutting ability.
I expect there to be a fight. That's all I know, and that's all I plan for.
Honestly, that's not a bad strategy. And it pays off. Just as Blotnick says we won't see Adkins tap, guess what? He taps. His head being pushed into the cage was too much to bear. A technique Tank probably perfected with training partner, another future champ and Hall of Famer, and owner of the biggest head on the planet, Tito Ortiz. Rounding out the quarterfinals is newcomer Fabio Gurgel and the Lions Den prodigy Jerry Bolander. Gurgel is a Brazilian jiu-jitsu practitioner who trained with the Gracies.
His style is comparable, he says, to Hoist Gracie without a G.
It's the one and only Digo Double G.
Gi or no gi, he's entering the octagon with the skills to play spoiler, something Bolander knows all about, having earned an upset win over Scott Ferrozzo at UFC 8. They grapple immediately, and Bolander avoids being taken down by grabbing the cage and hanging on for dear life. He ends up in Fabio's guard, but fairly quickly realizes that's not where he wants to be. He backs out and, despite wearing shoes, lands a pair of kicks, which Beck says he can't do to a grounded opponent. On the ground once again, Bolander tries for a guillotine that he can't secure. As soon as Gurgel improves position into mount, he gets flipped on his back by Bolander, who lands shots to the body and even headbutts to the face. The grappling match goes on for a while as the two experienced submission fighters stifle each other's attacks well. Judges' scorecards are needed, but before they're raised to show Bolander gets the unanimous decision, Blotnick indicates that's how it'll go, showing he knew his stuff long before the UFC even had a firm grip on just what the hell the sport even was. So here's our final four: Mark Coleman against Brian Johnston, and Tank Abbott versus Jerry Bolander. In the first of the semis, Johnston uses kicks to try to keep Coleman at bay. It works for a bit, but eventually he shoots for a double leg, gets it, and even though he lands headbutts and stiff punches, Big John has to step in and stop it, as broken-nosed Brian still won't give up. 5 solid scraps down and 2 sure to be classics still to come, the Georgia crowd is getting amped up. Is it the exciting fights, the atmosphere, or did they hand out bath salts at the door? Perhaps all three, as it seems like nothing could possibly bring the rabid crowd down off this high. Or could it? It's at this point that it becomes obvious the UFC is stalling for time. Often these videos, all legally obtained of course, cut out the downtime between fights, but for some yet unexplained reason we're shown shot after shot of the crowd. Clearly no celebs were in attendance this time, otherwise now would be the time to trot them out. Instead, all we get is lookalikes of Chuck Liddell and Pauly Shore. But soon enough, a breadcrumb is finally dropped for us.
We're not sure about Jerry Bolander's health.
They announced that Bolander, despite winning, is injured and can't continue. So the man he beat at UFC 8, the Pit Bull, Scott Ferrozzo, is stepping in to take on Tank instead. They get us prepped for the new challenger with a horrible highlight package. Seriously, this is all they show. Him falling on his ass and eating a spinning back fist. Huh, this should be a great fight. Literally a half an hour goes by before Ferrozzo makes the walk. While he looks haggard in his headshot, he looks calm and collected on his way to the octagon. We're about to be treated to a true styles clash, as street fighting is pitted against pit fighting. Say, Tank, what do you think of a discipline like that?
I am a street fighter, not some made-up name like pit fighting that other people came up with.
Of course, we all know how silly it is to make up nicknames, right, David? I mean, Tank? Beck says the two combined for almost 600 pounds, despite them weighing substantially more than that. But give him a break. He still thinks John Matua weighs 400 pounds, making Ferrozzo just the second biggest man Tank has fought. Inside the octagon, that is, because
His hobbies include going to bars, getting crazy, and raising hell.
wow, that L really does stand for lawless. You don't need to be Frank Fight fan to know what's about to happen here. These two behemoths walk to the center of the octagon and start swinging. There's no chance a fight like this lasts very long. Except when Tank takes it to the cage, he decides instead of trying to knock Scott's block off, to just hold on for dear life. Occasionally, though, they step back, stand and trade, and we are witness to one hell of a Donnybrook as they make a solid case for why the UFC should have its own super heavyweight division. Much of the action is that same leaning against the cage crap though, but even though it's Tank holding Ferrozzo there, the Pitbull is definitely the aggressor, landing more shots and fighting off takedown attempts without problem. He's been working with Don Frye since his first foray into the UFC, and apparently training with the Predator is paying off. He's even winning in the trash talk department.
Fuck you!
This fight's definitely worth a watch if you haven't seen it yet. It's a classic matchup of the immovable object against an even more immovable object. When shockingly neither man gets KO'd in 15 minutes, they go to extra innings, and once again, somehow, they both stay conscious. Afterwards, the judges hold up their scorecards, and all three say Scott Ferrozzo. The Pitbull effectively stifled all of the many skills possessed by Tank and came away with little more than a scratch.
And I wanted to be out of the UFC as the only guy that ever whooped Tank Abbott.
Ferrozzo cuts a serious post-fight promo on Tank. He gives credit to Don Frye for helping him improve his skills and seems like he'd gladly get right back in the octagon for the finals right now. But that's not how this is going to play out. It's time to kill time once again. And how do we do it? Talk to Don Frye.
I think everybody in the world would like to fight Tyson.
Highlight package of Ken Shamrock, followed by interview.
If the face is there, I'm going to use that.
Sweeping shots of the arena while the commentators struggle to fill the air, and sometimes don't even bother. Promote the next event. Try not to blow your entire budget on graphics, guys. We're then shown an update to the bracket before the commentators even announce there's been a change. Ferrozzo is dehydrated and can't continue, so it looks like another alternate who won a single fight this night is headed for the final. No, not him. It's Roberto Trovan, which when spelled out kinda looks like Dan Severn in a mustache. Well, like a different mustache. A disguise anyway. You know what I mean. Back to killing time. Highlights of Trovan's fight. Highlights of Coleman's fight. Show Coleman backstage. Shots of Tank signing autographs and being all smiles.
You know where he's going to be disappointed is when he looks at a video of this.
Breaking news of this hour.
Alberto Trovan has a broken hand, and he's not Gerard Gardeau, so he will not be competing in the final. What to do now? Internet questions.
Kevin Neenan joining me. Kevin Neenan from CompuServe.
Hammer home the Save the UFC message.
Talk to your talk shows in your area. Let people at your local DJ station know that you're interested. Call your mom.
Interview Tank, who gets rattled when someone heckles him.
Take care of that guy.
Promote Pan Craze with the most 90s commercial possible.
See,
battle-hardened warriors square off in Tokyo Tough.
They then show Mark Coleman walking to the octagon with his hands in the air while the announcers are still unaware what the plan is.
Mark Coleman has been declared the winner.
There's anticlimactic, and then there's this. With both alternates injured and Steve Jenham nowhere to be found, Coleman wins by default.
Our champion tonight in a bizarre finish.
This is probably the most bizarre finish.
How bizarre! How bizarre!
His trainer Richard Hamilton rather sheepishly holds up a sign challenging every branch on the Gracie family tree, which would have held more weight had he actually fought someone in the final, of course. But still, Coleman remains the king of the castle for another event. He's proven himself as dominant in the octagon, but you can't help feeling robbed of what would have been an exciting final. Be it Ferrozzo, or as the matchmakers hoped and prayed for, Tank going toe-to-toe with the Hammer. I mean, say what you want about Tank, he's sure a fan favorite.
I don't really care about my fans.
For now. So what did fans get after an hour of downtime in an approximate 3-hour event with no championship fight? An exhibition wrestling match. Basically the modern-day open workout between Coleman and pal Kevin Randleman. Something so far from what fans wanted, the UFC didn't even bother to show any of it on the broadcast. And nor should they. Although there are some exciting parts like Ferrozzo and Tank, and some true technical know-how on display, namely the well-rounded Brian Johnston, UFC 11 can be summed up by one simple phrase. 2 steps forward and 1 step back. Except that 1 step back is from the top of a really long staircase. So another event is in the books. That book dusted off, opened up, and read aloud so that everyone can hear just how silly it all was. Now, if you're new to the channel, there's plenty more for you to cringe along to, and if you're an OG AHOCV fan, I can't thank you enough for all the support. I love chatting with you guys in the comments about the dark days of MMA, so stay tuned for more videos, like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you inside the octagon. All the best.